My Lord Inquisitor, having now arrived in orbit above Atima Prime, I have immediately issued all forces to descend into the hive city of Tertium. May the Emperor guide these brave souls as they stand vigil against the unclean. May they pass his life's judgment upon all traitors, mutant, and heretic. Tertium shall be purged from their taint, as that is the God Emperor's wish.
It was back in 1998 that I first became involved in Warhammer 40k as a young lad. And like most, it started with a Space Marine tactical box, which over the course of the next 20 years led to many more boxes of many more things. And over that time there have been more video game adaptations of Warhammer than I could count. Ranging from iconic classics to bargain bin trash, it seems Games Workshop's approach to licensing out their IP is to go for a shotgun blast approach, where any game developer with enough hand-eye coordination to turn on their computer is welcome to have a crack. Warhammer Darktide was developed by a Swedish developer Fatshark, best known for their fantasy Warhammer titles Vermintide 1 and 2. It's from the financial success and blooming community that came from these two games that the obvious next step was born, to take the Vermintide formula and transfer it 40,000 years into the future. So if you're a fan of Vermintide, or even games like Left 4 Dead, this is something you're going to want to check out. Darktide certainly isn't without faults, which I'll get onto later, but I can't deny the fantastic environment, lighting and level design which is carried over to this new title. The maps and environments absolutely nail the 40k aesthetic and mood, and are great fun for running around and exploring. An absolutely stellar soundtrack with pumping bass lines, screaming organs and angelic choirs accompany your rampage throughout Tertium. There's been some transitions in the greatly enjoyable combat to accommodate the bigger emphasis on range combat in the 41st millennium, and in doing so, boy does this game have guns. Lots of guns. There's 26 core weapon types in Darktide, many with a whole range of variable models, and most being usable by various members of the new classes introduced as well. Those being the Veteran Sharpshooter, a marksman specialist who has access to a huge arsenal of firepower, the Zealot Preacher, faithful fanatics whose sole goal in life is to die in the name of the God Emperor, the Psyker, blessed with unworldly gifts of psychonetic powers, but cursed to stave off the madness that it induces. And lastly, the big boy himself, the Ogryn. Big muscles, big guns, big knife, small vocabulary. These four unique classes can be played in any combination, but unsurprisingly, one of each leads to a more well-rounded team. Each of the characters have a range of voice actors and a surprisingly deep character creation process behind them, that lead to some fantastic lore-rich banter between them all, as you and your team work your way through this hellhole of a planet. And it's a team that you'll need to play as. The world you'll be uncovering and cleansing of heretics is filled with hordes of poxwalkers, trappers, mutants, hounds, and much worse. Many of these horrors' sole purpose is to hunt down stray players, so it's really important to stay together as best as you can to try and complete whatever mission you've embarked on. These are chosen from the map console within the Morning Star, an Inquisition chip in high orbit that acts as the game's hub. The missions come as various objectives on a range of maps with rotating difficulty and variation. Sometimes there may be fog that's descended into the area, reducing visibility, or the area might currently have a high number of elite units within that definitely spice up the run a bit. There's also a few things to do aboard the Morning Star before you queue up for another round. As your level progresses and you'll work your way through the unobtrusive yet rather underwhelming backstory, you will unlock new weapons and their variants from the armory, which you can then upgrade via the ship's tech priest, Hadron Omega 77. There's also a barber for a quick trim, tattoo removal or extensive plastic surgery, as well as a real money cosmetics store that costs undetermined amounts of money. There's actually a bit of backlash regarding the store, as on launch the game had some optimization issues, and some felt that the store should have been taken a back seat until those issues were resolved. I personally don't have as much of an issue with it. this store is far beyond bloated with content, and there's plenty of cosmetics available with in-game currency, as well as progression unlocks as well. They were right to criticize the launch though, as the poor optimization noted during both rounds of beta carried over into launch, with some players crashing out continually. This wasn't something I experienced personally, but the hotfix which followed a few days later certainly seems to have helped the situation greatly. Unfortunately, the criticisms don't stop there, because while this game shines in so many ways, the combat is engaging and the atmosphere immersive, it's a title I would genuinely recommend, but so many elements of this game are so close to greatness, yet fall short. Already a lot of the creases are starting to be ironed out. Originally, weapon stats were vague arrays of obscure half-filled bars, but now they've added actual numbers to reference. But there's still so much yet to do. Going off the record from the 2 previous Vermintide titles, I have no doubt the developers will end up delivering a phenomenal game. The amount of work and effort they poured into those 2 games is something more studios should aspire to themselves. But currently, crafting and weapons which were featured in promotional material are still yet to be released. Exploring the map is enjoyable from a visual standpoint, but lacks any meaningful reward. If you're lucky, you'll find a crate with some scraps of crafting material, assuming the box isn't just empty. And the story is more of a nudge to remind you to keep grinding and playing the game. The daily system this game has in place is a nice touch to encourage continued play, but I'd much rather the game be more engaging with an unfolding story in the first place. In a way, it feels more like Vermintide 2.1 than Vermintide 3, but a lot of what's enjoyable about Vermintide 2 was built up over years. So if you're a hardcore 40k fan, and want something fun to just jump into with some friends and not think too hard about, this might well be worth picking up. But if you're hesitant for whatever reason, I'd probably encourage you just to wait for the Steam Summer Sale. It will inevitably be included in there, pick it up then, once it's fully optimized, patched, stuffed with more content and classes, for likely half the price. I just want to throw out a big thanks to you if you've made it all the way to the end. This was my first proper long-form YouTube video, so props to you to sticking it through. If you want to throw me a comment and telling me your thoughts about Darktide, and if you're thinking of getting it, or have it, and love or hate it, I check all the comments and yours would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again, and I hope to catch you next time. Cheers.